guys? It's 23Penny. I'm over here at Fat Cat in Nashville, Tennessee. I'm with my guy Joerilla and my other guy Joe. And yeah, it's good to be here. The food, yeah, really the food. I mean, and growing up, like I used to live in Louisville, Kentucky, so Nashville wasn't too far, but I went to Cincinnati a lot. I didn't go to like Louisville. You know what I mean? I didn't come to like Nashville to hang out. So just like and then I think when Ivan invited me to that sneakers and speakers a couple years ago, that was like really one of my first times ever. As a grown up being in Nashville, I'm like, oh, this city's kind of dope. So I hope to come back and just kind of explore a little bit more. I think it's very southern when it comes to sneakers. It's like, a lot of guys still wear Jordans, and just like Atlanta, man. I feel like the whole South is kind of, whatever New York is doing, Chicago is doing, LA's doing, we're doing it a couple years behind. You know what I mean? And just that, needs to be, but I mean that's our thing. That's our identity. You go down South and everybody wears Jordans. Nothing wrong with it. Just that's the culture. It has a very different vibe than. Atlanta. I think Atlanta's very developed versus Nashville, which is still kind of like, still being developed. You know what I mean? There's a lot more. You know what I mean? You feel that. You know what I mean? You see stuffing build, and you feel like the you know what I mean? There's like the sense of like something emerging, something better is coming out. I think it was the hats, man. It's the fitted hats. You know what I mean? That's how I really like got into sneakers. Was that like. A lot of these hats, and then you're like, wow, you know what I mean? It's just one of those things where like, you always knew about sneakers, but you didn't know that like, besides the Jordans, you have all these like crazy color combos that really come out. You know what I mean? Like, so when I got into hats, the new era, 23Pennies to be specific, you realize that, wow, they're making hats for the shoes, like ECAP City, or, these guys like Pegasus, which is in like Harlem. They're making hats for the shoes. So I was like, wow, like, what are they making these for? And then you realize that there was a release calendar, like every month some shoes came out. Oh, back in the day you had to wear a hat that literally matched every color scent on your shoe, right? So it's like, wow, like this is crazy, you know what I mean? And then you realize that a hat might cost you $30, $35, and a pair of shoes is like $100-something. Kind of just got into reselling, just kind of to get sneakers for free, so you can buy 5 pairs, sell 4, and get one for almost free. So that's how I accumulated a couple sneakers over the years, and then that kind of turned into a bigger operation. In that, I think the sneaker business back in maybe 2011, 2010 wasn't as booming as it is now. So the lack of resellers kind of helped me become a kind of a big figure in the South. So and I think with that, it's like I'm just a one-man band with a lot of people, a lot of friends, and a pretty good network. So you know what I mean? That's how I got into it. And I was like, wow, like this is bigger than just the shoes that Michael Jordan played in. You know what I mean? It's bigger than just Air Maxes. It was just that it was a whole ensemble of outfit, hats, and that led me to discover more about sneakers. I think this is business is more than it's a lot more complicated than it seems. You know what I mean? Especially with actual money being exchanged, products being exchanged online, shipping, the fees, being scammed. You know what I mean? It's just that it's an industry where it's so young. So you go online, you think about buying things off the internet like Amazon, things like that. The industry is still young compared to like the automobile industry, right? I mean, the automobile industry being around so long, you have the way of doing things that people figure out. Wow, this is the optimal way. Like, you know what I mean? Like, if you ask anybody how to buy a car, they will tell you, okay, well, you can go to the dealership, do this, do that. You want to start a business selling sneakers, you have to kind of be in the mud and kind of just muddle, kind of figure out things for yourself, because there's no like, you can't pick up a book that said sneaker resale for dummies. You know what I mean? So it's not there. And then, I think there's a lot of trials and error that you have to face as a reseller, and anybody out there selling shoes. Like, you might get scammed once and you figure out, oh well, I'm doing this wrong. Or, 1 year you might get hit with a 1099K tax form, and you're like, wow, I didn't know how to pay taxes on all my earnings. It comes with a job. I think like Croatian Style, who's out on the West Coast, based in LA, he said, it's kind of like the word reseller itself has a bad connotation to it, and I think it's changing over the years. It's just that I think more people get to know the actual business concept or the model of the reselling business. You understand that it's just like every other, it's supply and demand. You know what I mean? I have something you want it, I have it. We agree at a price, transactions made. So it's just like any other business, but in the sense that we're capping off, we're profiting off, a specific brand here, which is like Nike and Jordan, and now we're branching into other facets of the sneaker culture. We're selling, bots online. We're selling services. We're selling other things. We're selling laces. So it's just kind of, resellers help to build the sneaker industry just as much as sneakerheads and the brands themselves. So I think, sometimes it's fun to be the bad guy. You know what I mean? Because you don't play by the rules. So, I think, that's why for so long my identity was kind of like, oh, I don't want to be seen here, or you know what I mean? Kind of like I wasn't there. You know what I mean? Quote unquote, I wasn't there because it was just, you didn't want to be the person there. You know what I mean? You're kind of like, behind the scene kind of, like, when you go to the club and, people taking pictures and I don't say the dope dealer, but the dope dealer be like, oh, not in this picture. You know what I mean? Because then people are looking like, oh, who's this guy? What's he doing in this picture? You know what I mean? And it's just, I think to a certain extent, being a reseller, we're the bad guy. The normal reseller, by you logging onto their website and see what their prices are, how they shoot pictures, doesn't tell you about their operation. You know what I mean? And I think it's one of the industry where there's so much money being, floating around. Even me, I'm out here, I'm still buying shoes. So sometimes I might be supporting another reseller. You know what I mean? It's just that, I'm not the one to say like, oh, I want to, if there's a deal in the park going down, I want it. We're having sneaker conventions on a global scale where, the market is just so big now that, there are kids get into it every day, and I don't blame them. And you know what I mean? I just that, it's the evolution. It's the natural progression of the industry. It's supposed to get bigger. It's supposed to be multi-billion dollars. It's supposed to be where everyone gets a piece of the pie. These brands like British Knight, Pony, Theodora, whoever are saying, wow, there's actual money in this. Let's come back into the mainstream and make some money. You know what I mean? And it's just that, now they're bringing back a lot of like nostalgic shoes, and they're trying to get a piece of the pie. I think it's just, the industry as, a big entity is just growing. So, it's dope. I like the way it's going. It's a little bit more business centric now than it was before about collecting shoes. I don't think that might be the only downside is that, I don't think people value sneakers by the story behind it anymore versus, as it is now, which is kind of like, oh, if I have a pair of sneakers, how much can I get for it? You know what I mean? That's how you value a collection, I think, for a lot of people nowadays. Versus like, oh, I waited outside the store for 3 days and I finally got the shoes. This is one of my favorite pairs of sneakers because I remember being there buying the sneaker. You know what I mean? I just think that's kind of missing from the internet. Kind of just the kind of like taking everything online as an industry. Because at the end of the day, I can't make all the money in the world, and no one really can say they're gonna make all the money in the world. So I can't really worry too much about what other people are doing because my main focus right now is just focusing on what I need to focus on, which is very personal. I think very solo. Well, I think mid-March, one of my storage units in Atlanta got broken into, and it was a good chunk of maybe 500 pairs were gone. But yeah, things happen. It wasn't. I think a lot of people were speculating like, oh, it was someone close to you did it. Nah, it was just a guy. A guy broke in. He broke 70 locks, and then he happened to stumble up on mine. And it was like, oh guys, found something good, and hauled everything out. And luckily for him, I had a dolly, and a lot of things were just packed up in these shipment boxes. So you know what I mean? You can't be fixated on that too much. And you know what I mean? I still think about it, but that's in the past. What happened has happened. And the police, really weren't much help to deal with your insurance money. Yeah. So if you have a sneaker collection, make sure no one knows where it is, and don't put it in a storage unit. That's my advice, and that's my lesson from that. Or buy color insurance, and which is still complicated because apparently it takes a long time to get your money back.
How do you bounce back from something like
that? Just go out and make money. I mean, you just go out and, you know what I mean? I think, but it's also, it's just for me, the first couple of days was very emotional. Like, wow, you know what I mean? Because you feel violated in a way. Like, wow, somebody literally just came into your space that you kind of were entitled to. Like, this is your space, and someone came in and say, okay, we're taking everything. You know what I mean? And it just kind of like moving on from that, it became more logical. Like, okay, this is what I need to do. This is what I need to do to get back on my feet. I was telling T, earlier outside, it's kind of like you're driving on the highway, you're going 80 miles per hour, and somehow the car swerved, you're kind of leaning to the shoulder a little bit, and you're driving on the shoulder, you feel that doom, 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 doom. And then now you have to use all your strength or all your focus to pull the car back on the track. And that's what I felt like over the last couple months, is that I just had to do, I had to do 150% of everything just to kind of make my money back. And I'm out here hustling, doing other things, and just selling stuff that, just kind of had to take my business up to the next level. And I think that's what kind of happened. And maybe it's a blessing in disguise, but that's kind of my new thing is that I'm actually selling more sneakers than I was at the end of the year. At the beginning of the year. So, I don't know if that's something that's just how the business have, evolved, or the business model kind of, upgraded itself. But it's just that I'm actually more profitable than I was at the beginning of the year. So I think that kind of, kind of helped me a little bit. I'm not saying, it's very unfortunate what happened to me, but, I can't look back at it and say, okay, well, I wish this happened. It actually happened. But I think I'm back on track now, and for me, it was very logical to say, just like any other questions or problems that I have, it's like, how do I solve these problems? So you make a plan, set goals, and then actually go on about it and actually do it. So yeah, back on track. The grail list got a little expensive, and I'm trying to do some other things. So I don't have the resources to, spare per se. I've been in business since 2011 officially, and over the course of years, I bought everything that I really wanted. And it's funny because as the business grew, and as the industry grew, a lot of shoes that I was willing to pay for maybe $400, like the Air Max Patas, and then now they're $2,000, and I'm like, wow, I remember those were reselling for $400, $600, and now they're $2,000. I can't, you know what I mean? Even as a reseller, I can't even justify paying that much for something that I knew once were at a certain value. You know what I mean? I think a lot of shoes actually tend to do that. You know what I mean? And then just that, and I'm fortunate to have a couple of shoes in my collection that I think I caught at a very good price versus, nowadays where it's just becoming rare and rare every day. Like the cherry wood, there's probably, one or two pairs on the market every once in a while. And, one of my guys just sold a pair, I think 4,500 on eBay. So, you know what I mean? That was a shoe. There was a size 14 on Flight Club for $900 for the longest. And, and nobody bought it. So, I think, it's a different world. So I don't really have a grail list, as compared to a lot of people. I don't know if that's still a thing, I think back in the day, that was a big thing. These are my grails. I want these. And just that, I kind of seeing the cycles of retro, metallic 5s are about to come back out with a Nike Air, but, the 06, the 2010, now they just put a Nike Air on the back. I think for me, it's being in the sneaker, game for a minute, you kind of see wow, it's just, there's a pattern to it. They're bringing stuff back. I get it. You know what I mean? If someone who just started buying sneakers in 2015, you might not have access to a metallic 5 because you haven't been doing it, you haven't been buying sneakers, you haven't been paying attention. But now it's like, oh, I have a chance to get these. I never had them before. Or you never just had the resources to buy it. Now you can finally say, okay, I'm going to buy these Jordans because I always wanted them. Or you just say, oh, I like them just because I like them. You know? So it's just that, you know, I think the sneaker releases nowadays, the products are for a lot other people more than me. You know, it doesn't really cater to maybe me. But I mean, I still go out and I still like a lot of shoes they're putting out. You know, I like the shoes with, you know, a lot of collabs, and maybe just shoes that, you know, I didn't buy, or maybe the shoes that I wore over the years that just became beat up and I need another pair. You know, I always like architectural designs and, you know, silhouettes and stuff like that. And I think a lot of sneakers, like my favorite shoes are Air Max 1. I think that, you know, that shape, you know what I mean? I just think that shoe allows for a lot of creativity, you know what I mean? You know, the material used, to how it'll look, to, you know, essentially whatever you want to do with it. You know, Nike just dropped the shoe. I think it changes color in the daylight. You know, Air Max 1. You know what I mean? It's kind of cool. Like, you know, it's just that they're still innovating and doing things like that, because that shoe is so, you know what I mean? That shoe is so, it's such a blank slate. Well, I went to school for a business degree, so, you know, I wouldn't knock my education, but I would say that, you know, I think the years that I was in college running the business actually helped my schoolwork, because I actually did a lot of school projects just off my business. I remember this one time we had a project lined up, and then somehow this girl in our group ended up in the hospital the night before. We're supposed to do like these logistics and operation, do a project on like a nightclub, and then we went to the nightclub and the boss won't let us in. I don't know, it was just weird. And then that was the night before, we didn't have anything. So I was just like, yo, I guess we can do my sneaker business. And then, you know, we actually got like 100 on that project. You know what I mean? But because I had all the financial data, I had everything, and then, you know, we actually turned around and did some things and you know, created some insights. And that actually, I'm still thinking about today. It's like, you know, like, oh, you know, if I'm ordering boxes to ship the shoes in, at what point should I reorder these boxes? You know what I mean? So these are the things that I learned in school. Like, okay, well, you know, if I'm down to 20 boxes, I should order because it takes 2 or 3 days to get here. You know what I mean? So these are things that I kind of learned from the business school, and then, you know, basic accounting, of course, finance, and then of course marketing. You know, I was a marketing and consulting major, so that definitely helped. But, you know, I just think the drive, man, it's all about your personal drive and, you know, how bad you want it. So, you know, I think I wanted it pretty bad, and, you know, after graduating, I didn't want to go to, you know, a company and work 9 to 5. You know, nothing wrong with it, but it wasn't for me. So I just said, you know, my junior year, I was like, if I'm gonna do this, I really need to be trying to do better at it. You know what I mean? Really focus on it and just, you know, hone my craft and figure out what I want to go with it, and, you know, set goals. Business models are, you know, essentially very different. There's a lot of things that I feel like your characteristics, your skills can't translate, but I feel like there are other things that are bigger than sneaker stores and the way, you know, the Nike does releases that you can't control at a certain point. You know what I mean? If I do go to a Fortune 500 company, I might have to start at the bottom and really learn the system and learn how it works. Because I feel like a lot of that personal skills can transfer, but it's the hard skills that come with the job that you have to start learning from the bottom. And, you know, the drug dealer, I mean, you know, a lot of people always say, like, the drug deal is, like, the drug game is like the shoe game. You know what I mean? Like, you don't want people to know where you get it from. You don't want people to know where you put it, you know, at the stash houses. You know what I mean? And you don't want people to know how much you're making. You know what I mean? So it's like, all these things, I think the biggest thing you take away is you learn how to interact with people. Because I think in the sneaker business is all about your personal skills. It's like how you build clients, and I think that will translate into the corporate world. But I feel like the corporate world has so much more politics than the sneaker industry, just because, you know, they're just been around longer. You know what I mean? I think at one point, you know, and as a sneaker culture / industry, we have these jargons. You know what I mean? Like, you go to these industry, they have their jargons. We have our jargon. Dead stock, you know what I mean? Very near dead stock. Things like that, you know, quick strike. So it's just that, you know, it's somewhat equivalent, but it's still a little bit more developed than I think the sneaker industry is. I think my mom and my dad definitely, I think growing up being like Asian, they have like high expectations, but I never really did well in school per se. Like, I didn't go to Harvard. You know what I mean? I think there's a lot of like pressure on. You know, I was fairly good. You know, I got like a 33 on my ACT. So, I mean, I was good. You know, I went to the top 20 school. I was good, but it just that I wasn't. I knew once I kind of got into sneakers, I wasn't. You know, I didn't want to do. You know, when I got into sneakers, it was just so. You know, so much adrenaline, and then you're thinking about these like, wow, like, oh, this is crazy, this is cool. You know, I was making money in college, so I have a taste. I had a taste of the real world before a lot of people really dove into the real world. So, you know, but I mean, they see it now. They see that I'm doing well. They see I like what I'm doing, but you know, they're just worried about. My main concern, I think, my mom is that worried about I probably work too much. Probably work like 80 hours a week. If I really think about it, but I mean, but it's just that. Sometimes you don't count the hours. But a lot of times, if you're surfing the internet, I mean, if I'm surfing the internet, it might be work. You know what I mean? If I'm looking through blogs or other things, it might be work. So, is that really work? Is that, you know what I mean? If I'm out hanging out and we're talking and, you know, I'm doing this interview, is this really work? You know what I mean? Do I need to clock in, clock out? I don't think so. But, see, you know. And and the thing about selling sneakers that I think is such a personal thing. Like me and my guy hanging out, we might have met through sneakers, and that opened a lot of doors for me to meet a lot of, you know, NFL athletes, stuff like that. You know what I mean? And just normal day people that just like sneakers, and you know, they're my friends. You know what I mean? So I don't see them seeing me as a bad guy. They know what I do, and you know what I mean. So it's like it's cool. So I have a lot of close friends that I met through sneakers, Nike Talk, Facebook, Instagram. Whatever. So it's cool. It's like how I met you. You know what I mean? It's like if I never met you through sneakers, then we wouldn't be sitting here having an interview. So. Kind of I mean everything's kind of cyclical. So you know, up and down. I think we're kind of like maybe a little bit, but then like once in a while you get like a Jordan, and you're like, wow, like people are really going all out for these. You know what I mean? But it's kind of like they're at a point. I think everything's kind of saturated, and yeah, I hope so. You know, it's just that I don't think people realize that Jordan Brand, it being itself, is trying to stay here for as long as the planet is here. So they can't say like every sneakerhead's wish. We can't make it true because we can't drop something in the next 10 years because we need to save it for 2040. You know what I mean? Like, they can't do that because they're like, well, you know, we got to save these for later. You know what I mean? So it's kind of like they're not really giving us what we wanted. And you look at the Maroon 6, they came out, it was $220. I think that scared a lot of people away. And it didn't really sell. Like, you know what I mean? And people were wanting Maroon 6s to retro for 10 plus years. And look at, you know, when the Aqua 8s come out, it didn't even sell. You know, it might be because they're making more pairs than before, or just that there was some, you know, part of the shoe that looked different or wasn't identical to the releases before. But you know what I mean? But according to, you know, the OG heads, wow, they're closer to the OGs than the whatever other retro was. But it's like, you know, it just, you know, I just think there's too many shoes out and people don't have the budget to buy every single release like people did back in the day. So. Like 2012, 2010, you know what I mean? You know? That just felt like fast. Like, that blew by. Now it's kind of like, you see Jordans on the shelf, like, wow. You know what I mean? Like, that's a little slow. Like, wow, I remember, you know, oh, these came out like last year. You know what I mean? Like, you go to the store, you might see some Chrome 8s that came out around, like, after Christmas. How crazy is that? You know what I mean? Like, for Jordan to finally sit over half a year, you know, like 2 quarters. So, and not being marked down, which is other thing I think that's killing, like, these, killing retailers, that they're not marking stuff down fast enough. You know what I mean? You can't have a Jordan that's $190 that's not selling, and it's still on the shelf for $190. I probably can count, it'll be countless people that probably walk by and say, is this on sale yet? If it's on sale, I'll buy it. Just to pick up the shoe, check the price, and they're like, oh, it's still not on sale. I'm just going to wait it out. You know what I mean? I think that's kind of like, also, you know, a lot of people were budgeting like, oh, you know, I think this is going to go on sale. I'm going to wait. And indeed, you know, just the retail market is just not, it's kind of weak. You know, like Fat Caps, you know, they don't have a Jordan account, but, you know, you guys are booming. So, you know what I mean? It's just that, like, I think for a lot of stores with Jordan accounts, you're supposed to kind of, and kind of just bounce from, like, kind of, it's a pivot point to go from making money off Nikes and Jordans to do other things that make money. Using Nike and Jordan as like a starting point to get people in the door, to get your brand out there, to get the, hey, like we have a store here, come through. You know what I mean? So I just think that, you know, I don't think Nike and Jordan should be anybody's bread and butter in, you know, 5 years into their business. You know what I mean? They should have other brands. They should have in-house brands. They should, you know, clothing, whatever they're doing, they need to keep on doing it, like doing things that doesn't depend on Nike or Jordan. So, you know. Probably the Yeezy, the Red Octobers. I got it for retail. And I actually like flew to New York to meet the guy that bought it. I wasn't like deep in Brooklyn, maybe like man, it was deep. It was deep in Brooklyn. And I went to the guy, like he had a clothing boutique out there. So I went out there. I flew out there with the shoes. Literally got off the plane in LaGuardia, took a cab all the way to the heart of Brooklyn. The guy came, tried the shoes on. He was like, well, I don't think these are real. Or he was like, well, I want to make sure they're real. So we hopped in a little car in rush hour, went to Fight Club on Broadway in Manhattan. And so, you know, it took like an hour and a half to get there. And then when we got there, he pulled up, double parked out front, walk in the store. He knows like a sales associate that was in there. So he takes a look at the shoe. I open the box. He takes a look at the shoe. He's like, oh, yo, these are fake. I was like, what? So, and the buyer wanted to give me the benefit of the doubt. So he was like, yo, why don't you go downstairs and bring up a pair? So he went downstairs, got a pair up, the Red Yeezy, and, you know, he's holding two shoes together, and he's like, and they look exactly the same. So at that point, the sales was like, oh, yo, my bad. You know what I mean? And then he gave me cash outside. I was sitting in his car, double parked, counting all these like 20s, and you know what I mean? You know where the 20s are from, but it was like, you know, that was like, I flew to New York and I stayed a couple days, but it was like, you know, that's probably the biggest flip in terms of on an individual pick. I think this is like midnight release. A lot of midnight release. You know, I think the white cements in like 2012. I think like after everybody left the line at midnight, I went in there and bought like 30 something pairs because that store just had that many pairs left. And you know, like these guys that were getting in line buy the Jordans and they were going to the club afterwards. Like I'm standing in line, like okay, well I guess I just get back in line. And then by the end of the night, I was like the only one left in like 30 some pairs. And I went back the next morning and got some more. So that's like one of my favorite stories. And also like one time I went deep down south and we found like infrared black, varsity red sixes for like $100 like 3 years later. You know what I mean? Just like cool shit like that. Like True Blue 3 grade school, you know, black cements, stuff like that. Just a couple years later, you're like, wow, like I can't believe they still have these. But that was also in the, like, I guess back in like 2011, 2012. It has to be like 2012 when like a lot of people weren't that into sneakers. You know what I mean? Like True Blue wasn't like the J's you gotta have at that point. You know what I mean? I think over the years it's like if you collect Jordans or you're buying Jordans, you gotta have certain Jordans. You know what I mean? I think it just wasn't that complicated back in the day. More people got into it. It was cool. It became cool. That's all it is. I mean, it was cool to me before, but it just that like I didn't. You know, it's one of those things. You know, I mean, it's a silly example, but you know, it's the one I remember the most. You know, a bunch of guys are hanging out on the park. One guy get up, he's dancing. Everybody's looking at him like, "What's this guy doing? This is so weird. Why is he dancing?" Another guy gets up, joins him. And at one point, you reach a tipping point where you say, over half the people are dancing. So if you're over there in the park and you're not dancing, you're kind of the odd man out at that point. So that tipping point kind of happened, I think, in 2012 when, you know, and you were kind of into the rap scene, the hip hop culture, whatever it was, the streetwear stuff, and you weren't wearing these cool, colorful sneakers. You really wasn't that cool. You know what I mean? And then I think that, you know, it kind of just took kind of just started from there and became this big thing. So it kind of just exploded, you know. And the sneaker industry, I don't think it was ready for that. And you know, when that exploded, everyone was out here trying to buy these sneakers, and you know, me being in the industry, you know that the productions were done a year before the shoes come out or 6 months. So they didn't have whatever it needs to meet that demand. So everywhere you go, there was a shortage of shoes. I mean, it's like the iPhone. You know, when the iPhone come out, it might be only, you know, a couple hundred units in the city, and then people line up like crazy for iPhones right on release day, and it's like, well, it's the same exact thing with sneakers, except that, you know, Nike and Adidas and whoever finally learned, yo, there's people out here want to buy, you know, 500,000 pairs of sneakers. Like, let's make, you know, 750,000 pairs. Let's make some more. You know what I mean? And I think that's where we're at right now. Is that it's a little bit more saturated, but we're still getting more people to buy sneakers, buy Jordan. You know what I mean? It's cool. You know what I mean? And with social media, it's like, you know, you're getting into the glimpse of like people like Mark Wahlberg. You know what I mean? Like, Mark Wahlberg's audience is probably way bigger than a normal sneakerhead, but you know, he's out here wearing Jordans, and people are like, oh, these are cool, where can I get them? You know what I mean? And they're out here Googling like how to buy Air Jordans. You know what I mean? It's just that the social media really propelled the sneaker world to like a new height. You know, and it was just that, you know, if you were nobody, you can become somebody on the internet because of sneakers. Know your market. I mean, I know my market, I know my customers, and at the same time, there are a lot of people out there that will ask me like, hey, are you getting this? Are you getting that? So, you know, once I get over a certain amount of emails, I'm like, okay, I wasn't planning on getting these, but apparently people want them. So, you know, at that point, it's kind of like, okay, you kind of figure it out, and then, you know, I might throw up. I mean, you know, it's like a little trick, but it's like you might throw up a pre-order on something and see if it sells. If it doesn't, then it might not sell, you know, but if it's selling, then it's probably going to be a good shoe. So it's just that having like a, you know, a little trial balloon out there kind of works a lot of times.
But you pretty much got it down pat.
Yeah, I mean, if you know the Jordan 11 is going to sell. You know what I mean? It's just that there are certain things in the sneaker game I feel like you've been around long enough, you know. You know what I mean? I didn't think those all black 12s, the Masters, were going to sell like that, but they did, you know what I mean? And then French Blues did, Blue Games did, you know, it's weird, man, but it's like sometimes you kind of just have to kind of, you know, keep your ears to the, you know, to the streets, like, you know, whether it's Twitter streets, Instagram streets, or just blog streets, you know what I mean? You kind of have to see like what people are saying about them, you know, and I pay close attention to kind of like, you know, what kind of reaction they get when the picture leaks, or how many emails I kind of get, you know what I mean? You just know, like, and you know, with the time, like Flu Game, Memorial Day weekend, you know what I mean? Everybody wants new shoes. Back to school, they might drop something cool. They might drop a solid black shoe. Okay, you can wear that to school. You know what I mean? They might sell 3,000 pairs of black on black Air Force One. You know what I mean? Just back to school. I mean, you just, once you're in the industry long enough, you kind of figure out these things. And, you know, I talk to a lot of other, you know, resellers, and they kind of, you know, we talk about things like this. And, you know, be like, oh, that's good. Oh, that's coming out. Oh, that's good. You know what I mean? It's kind of like we kind of have our own support group in a way. Like, we all sit down and talk about things. You know what I mean? Just like reseller round table. You know,
like who?
What?
Like who?
I don't know. A lot of guys I'm familiar with, they're pretty low key. You know, they sell shoes through other venues rather than a website. So.
But you guys are like,
or locally. I mean, we have like some text groups. You know what I mean? Or a shoe might drop the day before, and everybody's like, "Yo, what's the 411 on these?" You know what I mean? It's like, it's one of those things. I mean, but at the end of the day, we're all just like people that like shoes. I think that it's one of the industries where, like, you don't like shoes or you don't really know about shoes, you can't, like, do well. You know what I mean? I just think that, you know, back in the day, there's a lot of SBs, right? I mean, you don't know these nicknames or things like that. I mean, it's cool. Like, you don't like SBs, then that's not your thing. But to be a reseller, you kind of have to be well-versed in, like, sneaker history. And I think that's what's kind of missing from the game, per se. Is that, like, nobody really cares about the story anymore. And then, you know, there's so many collabs out there now, you can't really read all these stories behind the shoes and the inspiration and blah 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 blah. You know what I mean? Just, it got too much, but it's like you should know the basics. You know what I mean? I just think that, you know, someone who doesn't really know a lick or anything about sneakers come in trying to be a reseller. They're just gonna be like, well, I guess I'm returning these to finish line. You know what I mean? It's just that, you know what I mean? You just don't know. And that's another thing. Like, you should not ever return anything to your local store, because then you pretty much get blackballed, and they won't sell you sneakers on release day. Twitter definitely has the sneaker Illuminati. These guys talking about how to buy shoes with bots and what bots to use, what proxies, and I'm too old school in the sense to sit at a computer and have these Google Fiber speed internet and do things and figure out what proxy works, what website. These guys, stay up all night trying to figure out like where to buy shoes from, and they wait 7 days for shoes to come. And a lot of times the resale dies in 7 days. You don't have the shoes on hand. It just the hype dies and you can't sell it. You know what I mean? That's why, I'm kind of separating myself from that group a little bit in that I'm not really caught up in buying and selling things that they're selling or buying per se. You know what I mean? I don't want to be, you don't want to be in the middle of the pack. You know what I mean? So I'm not one trying to be, of course it's the big shoe like the red and white 12s I'll have those. You know what I mean? Like those I know I will buy, but it wasn't because of those guys on the internet saying, oh, these are, these Twitter other resellers are like, oh yeah, these are hot, let's buy those. You know what I mean? I already know that. You know what I mean? Like the 11 lows, the white and red. And I was like, oh, these are always good. I mean, you can sell them next year probably for even more. You know what I mean? Like, hold on to them, sell them next year. It just, there's things that, I think me as a reseller over the years figure out that these, new guys. I mean, a bunch of guys on Twitter and Instagram selling shoes are kids. You know what I mean? They go to school during the day. You know what I mean? Like, they have to do homework. Like, I'm not knocking those guys' hustle, but I'm just in a different lane than a lot of those people. I like to have, I like to physically go out there and get the shoes. I don't want to wait for something to come in with it. So, you know what I mean? Or not knowing like if I will ever be. You know what I mean? I don't want to wait on release day to buy these shoes and I might miss out because I goofed up on a proxy. I goofed up on a digit or alphabet letter and my bot is not working. You know what I mean? Like I can't. That's not the kind of malfunction that I want to. You know what I mean? Be like responsible for or even worry about. So.
You offer any advice to the upcomers?
Know your numbers, know your margins, know what kind of business model you want to do. Just read a lot of books, man. There's a lot of good books out there, management books. Just stuff that you might not even think about reading. That'll give you ideas on how to run a business, how to do, customer service, blah 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 blah. Like a couple of ones I read recently. I try to keep up with the good, the trying to read like a book a month, but last couple months I've been off track. I'm not guilty of saying that, but I think Good to Great is one of those books. It's talking about like how walking is so much better than its competitors, stuff like that. So just read and kind of just don't be shy to talk to people. You know what I mean? Because treat everyone the same because everyone has something to offer to your business, whether it be advice, resources, network. Or just, simply being a friend when you need somebody like that. You know what I mean? I think let's go as far as just life lessons. So. I try not to reply to a lot of people on release day, but I think if you have my personal number and you know how I operate on release day, you probably wouldn't hit me up anyway. Because, you know what I mean? Because, products move so fast on release day that you might hey, I need this, I need that, and I don't hit you back for 15 minutes, and it might already be sold from the website. So, it's just that, you know what I mean? I like to plan things out. So, that's why I tell a lot of people, if you're going to need something, let me know in advance. So I can put you on the list. Or I can, be like, okay, I'm sending this to that, or I'm taking your money beforehand. So, a lot of the time for me, release day is maybe 20% of the work, because 80% of the work is done that week before. Whether it's getting the money together, whether it's getting the sizes in place, whether it's getting the money for the orders. So, a lot of times the orders I'm, getting are just extra pairs that's being sold. You know what I mean? For a lot of shoes, I like to have a minimum of how many I want to sell. Or, if people hit me up, then my regulars hit me up, I'll be like, okay, cool. Let's take care of this right now before it gets crazy on release day. So, on release day, sometimes I don't even go out there and stand in line. And, you know what I mean? It's not worth my time, really. You know what I mean? And it's just that, I think being in the sneaker industry and everything, it's Saturday is your big work day. It feels like Monday in the sneaker world. You know what I mean? In the normal world, you're like, well, this kind of sucks. You know what I mean? Because you go out there, when I was hustling and standing in line, you were out there 4 a.m., 5 a.m. in the morning. You don't get finish till 3 to 4. Nowadays, the raffles and the cutoff time is 6 p.m. So you're out here till 6 p.m. You know what I mean? Just it's such a big like, you know, to be running around driving and answering calls and texts and figure out what's in your trunk and make sure people don't see what's in your trunk, and then a lot of that just kind of take a toll on you over the years, and sometimes, you know, it's not worth it. You know what I mean? I'd rather sell 10 less pairs than to be out there and then, you know, worry about like, oh, am I really gonna get these or not? I mean, you ever got in a line where you're like, damn, I might not get these shoes? You know what I mean? And it's like, that might be the worst thing in the world, is that like you stand in line for a half court shot. You know what I mean? Kind of like your percentage isn't that good, but you're still out there. You know what I mean? And it's just that over the course of years, I had my share of like, you know, airballs. You know, you go to the store, you walk in, they might not have any shoes. You know what I mean? So it's just being smarter and plan it out, or, you know, have a route. Like I would say, all right, I'm gonna hit A, B, and then C. Make it very logical. Like 10 a.m. I'm here. If I'm not done by 10:30, I need to leave because I need to get to the other store. You know what I mean? So it's a lot more logistics now if I do go out on the release day. You know what I mean? But for me, it's like the release day stuff isn't that heavy. It's just like I don't like to deal with the stuff if I'm out. There's the premium that you pay with a lot of these resellers or reputable resellers or big resellers, that A, you know there's no bullshit. B, the shoes are real. 3, and again, there's no bullshit. So would you rather pay $10 extra just to save all the hassle? You know what I mean? That's kind of how I look at it.
Right.
So, you know, as this business grows, you know what I mean? It's kind of like your reputation should be better. You know, you should have more people vouch for you per se. So, you know. Better business etiquette? Or, I don't know. I just hope these kids grow up to be like good people. You know what I mean? I think when you're a kid, you're like intrinsically bad. Like you're just, you know, all these kids are just bad. Like I want to get over on you. You know what I mean? It's just that I think we need to take like the scamming down. I think that's what's kind of like holding the culture back. But you know, I'm not really even sure there's a sneaker culture. You know what I mean? Because for me, so much of through my eyes is all dollar signs. Because I'm trying to run a business. So, you know, I think being a sneakerhead and a reseller you can't be, you know what I mean? It's just hard to be both. I don't know, just, you know, good business etiquette. You know, somebody sends you money, respect it, you know what I mean? Send their stuff. Like, don't wait a week to send their shoes, you know? If you're buying shoes, don't be a nag and you know, asking you about when the shoe's gonna ship like 20 minutes later after you place the order. You know what I mean? Like, it's cool, like, you're getting your money, and I appreciate it, but it's like, you know, I'm trying to do my best. It's that, like, I always wake up every day, I always try to make the most out of my day. And that is by me, you know, growing my business and then doing the best I can do. But sometimes there are things that's out of my control. You know what I mean? And then for me, it's kind of like my job is to get better and minimalize, you know, all that stuff. Signing off. Thanks for watching this video. I don't know how long it's running, but I probably spit like 8 times. You can probably see like spit flying across this camera. You know, thanks. And shout out to Fat Cash, you know, for, you know, I was just driving in the city today. I called Joe, and when I texted him, I was like, yo, I'm in town, you want to do that interview? And he was like, yeah, let me see if we can find a space. And then, you know, sure enough, 2 hours later, you know what I mean, we're like, meet here at 7 o'clock. You know, so shout out to T and Joe, and, you know, everybody here, right, and joerilla for setting this up and editing it. I know it's going to be a lot of time spent editing this, right? And he had me doing all these, you know, the walkthrough, I was like, man, you know, this is the awkward part of the video. So keep that on. Make sure you keep that on. So, yeah, signing off. Thanks.